Welcome, dear viewers, to the 81st Energies of the Days with Alexander Wagand, and some hints at the start. Now in the weekend, on Saturday and Sunday, there's a conference online, on radio, on Oki Talk, and there I'm also too. okitalk.com, I think, in German. And there's the Congress Pathways into Freedom, the 21st of November in Stuttgart, or near Stuttgart. I think Dagmar Neubronner is also there, with similar names on the other conference too. So these are two hints at the start. Then I'd like to point to the subject. That's the Keshe Foundation. There should be free energy devices now. And construction plans are published or should be published now. Yeah, I'm waiting a little bit. I'm timid a little bit because I've seen many things where at the end there was nothing, there came nothing out. Remember the quantum energy generator? I know 1 year ago the patents were given free, and I haven't seen any until now. This is why I'm waiting, and if someone has something, a device like that, you can build it. There are workshops and seminars so I can build them. It's wonderful if it happens. And if someone has such a device, he can come to the studio and we will introduce that. But I'm really careful because many technical data are missing. For example, you can order those MAGRAPH generators, but there are no, there's no data for them. And also in the published instructions how to build those devices, there are no real data everywhere. We'll see it when it comes. The energies are our subject at the start. It's not the energy that is free, but although every energy we receive from the cosmos are free. How are the energies? Well, they are heavy and strong, unoverseeable. But above all, they reach more people than before. And this is because we get more in resonance with certain issues. There's a development process in us and through us, with us, that we can perceive. This means we just perceive more, we realize more, and we are overwhelmed sometimes, but still many things are happening now. Many things directly reach us. I know months ago we talked about that much of what we talk about here is for most people in their life not really showing up. These are things that you experience if you dig deeply or scratch at the surface. And now many issues stand very strongly in connection to us. And many things are reaching us directly. And this is a wonderful description of this energy. It's unoverseeable, and it's an energy that wants a decision from us. And this needs to be talked about today. Yes, we have seen in the shows before that many subjects boil up where it's like a dividance or two things. So another, you want to be helping people, or there are problems. On the other hand, there's an extreme separation created by everyone who worries, putting them into the right corner from the media and politics. So, like, you would have to forbid that people say critical things about immigration here, or people lose their workplaces if they post something at Facebook. And the Bild newspaper wanted to denounce people who have certain comments on Facebook. So everyone realizes no matter on which side you stand, you can't do it right. You are always in danger of doing the wrong thing. And if it doesn't only affect outsiders, where you would say, oh, well, some conspiracy theorists, but it affects especially almost everybody who makes thoughts about this. So then it's something where everyone senses you can, how do I deal with that? And worry about that. We often said it's important to claim your space, to take your space. Is this also valid for us as a society, as a people or a nation or as a region? Is it important that we take on our space and don't have to everyone the space is important. Your space, your personal space defines your personal standing. This means where is your position in this, we say, yeah, where are you standing? So this means we have to question if we would have to follow only what others say and run into the corner where others want us. It's important that you for yourself find out what is now, what really in myself when I watch things, how they present themselves, how I can bring order into what I see. So besides such dogmatism, and in the early editions of the Day's Energies we always talked about what's finally defended are the ideologies, where we could rewind to show 20 or 25 or so. We are at this point. You can wonderfully read that those thought prohibitions that are pronounced now, obviously, on many parts, that they serve to maintain the view that they want. This is done with radicality, also in contradiction to what they demand, because what we experience here is the opposite of what they represent as their values. They speak of freedom of speech and of rule of law state, but they also speak now of correct freedom of opinion. This means you can have the opinion that is correct, but freedom of opinion is freedom of every opinion. And Voltaire said, I hate every word they say, but I always fight that they can and may say it. And this form of freedom is needed at the moment because we experience many things newly and have to sort that newly. So we experience a world in unrest where we can bring order into, also in thoughts. And if we now run into fences where it says, attention, here is mind territory, it has a stamp, radical, or whatever, then we always run back into those areas where they want to keep us. This is a picture that well describes where we stand now, claiming our space and not only moving inside of this fence like the cattle. The right wing has to deal with left subjects, the left one has to deal with right subjects and just break out of your single area. The urgent task is in front of the door, otherwise others would take over the sorting or the order for us. You cannot say, let the others just do, I don't say anything, I'm safe. No. Actually, no one is safe anymore. We often spoke about the affinity to the state, and that we were born in a state where we have the experience that we are worth less as people than people who come from outside to us and can do everything here, and where we think we are nationals. This is actually, we are not, yeah, only if we can prove it. And we've done a show about this already. And who cannot prove that he is citizen in some respect, that they can deal with him however they want, because you're just a legal person, a thing, and not the man or the woman that we see in front of us. But the system acts with a thing, and in front of court, everything, they can do everything to you, because you have, as a legal person or as a thing, as good as no rights. If you don't look, well, how can I get those rights back? Now you very quickly jump through a big circle of themes. That's okay for people who already dealt with it, but who hears this for the first time will be surprised and don't find an entry to the subject now. I'm just putting myself in the shoes of someone newly confronted with it. But what you say, you can maybe summarize it to understand it. We are going through a long development, not only 80 years, it's much longer. And in this, structures were created that create an artificial order. It works according to certain rules of which we don't know anything, because we get set pseudo-rules set in front of us to calm us down, because those rules could free us up if you knew them. If you know the rules, you can approach things differently. It's wise to keep people in the unknown, that they don't know about it. And many big secret societies build up parallel societies inside of the society, and on certain parts it's decisive, do you get into the inner circle or do you stay at the outer circle and think you're a master? Yeah. These structures are hundreds of years old. This all is no theory. It's provable, but most people think it doesn't exist anymore. But this is an important area, that some rights of which we would assume we'd automatically have them, they can be deprived of us because of artificial structures that had been built up this way. And here I'd like to point to that we are in a final state of development in which certain structures finally should be created. For example, free trade agreement. This points into this direction. Or the abolishment of many offices and state authorities that get other names and lose their status of their areas and their accountabilities. Here, and some communities, the villages, were deprived of their rights. It started from Hitler. He had different territorial things, and now we have the district towns. It's a new subject from the 70s. The districts took over many rights of the communes. This development isn't new, but it leads towards a conclusion. And this, Joe, I want to say in every case, because it's so important, because it gives us hope at the same time and explains the circumstances better. I think what we find now is a hurried reaction to press the button everywhere. Yeah? We already talked about that in the system. At some time the point would be reached where they let the system crash, where they deconstruct it to start it newly. They try to start it newly in other conditions. But of course here ritual dates play a big role, and those dates, I think they kept them. From there, you could have the impression, also as someone from out of the system, that all runs according to plan. But I'm convinced that many things we see now are very much had been very much quicker put into action than they originally wanted. Many were surprised who were and could have been embedded into those processes, but they're surprised from of the speed. Why do they do this? Because they get panic that they cannot get the herd into the field fast enough. Now they take actions for bringing those artificial control structure together before a big awakening happens. And these are big signals that it doesn't work so well for them as they want. And the news that we have today that could provoke shocking. It's important, yeah. And the subject I had addressed, you could deal more intensively with that. That you just realize, if you get really clear what's there happens of deprivation of rights, and that you're so naive and think, well, I got my rights in front of the court, and the judge will perceive me rightly. But you enter, you could, you're not, are not seen with your full rights. Yeah, it's an example. And then I want to say, it's the sheriff in the USA who represents the old circle of rights. He stands obviously above everyone in the new circle of law, so he can throw out FBI people or imprison them. So it's shown in films. The FBI comes, tells the sheriff, give me coffee, we take over. Yeah, they want to bring this into the head of the people, but the situation is totally different. And for this there are many, many examples to be found in YouTube, an interesting subject. The constitution, sheriffs true to the constitution, who can confine federal officers and throw them out of the country because they represent the old rights. And this circle of rights wants, certain structures want to be abolished, want to abolish such old structures, old legal structures. And sometimes people in the system use such structures even, or some people in the system use such structures to set themselves in a better legal position than the normal citizen. And those secret insider programs who are understood, but this would be only a singular show for itself. Yeah, I do it too. I address those subjects too. I have in December now a convention from the 4th till the 6th of December. There such subjects will be talked about, that we understand how are we energetically set up. This means which structures are there to control us, for us to realize them and maybe be able to defend against those, but above all to see that those structures are existent, and to realize that we are living in another world as we thought. This is an important step to find a new order or new position in yourself or in the world from this new perspective. So who wants to come? The seminar is in German, of course, but it's at the start of December. And the real interested people will maybe take the last places, so please don't wait till the last minute if you want to be there. There are limited places. So that is the last meeting in that year. And yes, here the Paris attacks are not in the show while they are translated. This is older, some days. The state apparatus that is differently perceived now, the own loss of power, brings much into motion in us, and on the other side we sense that a development takes place that changes go hand in hand with this, and we have to be able to bear this field of tension. Finally, you could say there are powers that don't want this change of consciousness and to keep us on a level where we are further controllable. But the great thing is that this shift of consciousness takes place, and they can try to close everything down with the pincers, but this doesn't happen. And they, where we earlier thought we would live in a democracy, now we realize it has this kind of sense of dictatorship, and they have to admit it somewhere, at some points already. But even if it's fearful for us in some places, the news that they are in desperation and in fear, and they have to push this through or it doesn't work anymore, and I have the feeling it doesn't work anymore. We see it in many parts, yeah, and it rains wet flannels now. And what I've seen is that everyone is hit by them, everyone's struck by them right now. But you still can walk out with an umbrella, but have to put up the question, why do I need this umbrella? You would also perceive the flannels when they seem to flow off from your umbrella and they lie on the street around you. Even if you lie, if you would look around, you would see them. If you think we bring so many negative news, if we don't deal now with that, you would have to do later more flannels around your ears. You would get them flying around you. And you could sit at the screen at home and say, well, you have to make this conscious. You can deal with that now. It's like before a holiday you would deal with maybe there are sharks in the sea, and you could find out, well, there are not so many that they would attack people, and this is not that dangerous. This means you can deal with your fear of the white shark before the holidays, and it's better than while on holiday seeing a shark and being in panic. And I'd love at this part to point to there are dangerous sharks, yes, and that the awakening from the children's world with the acceptance careful, here's a dangerous animal at the river, it's important. And especially this acceptance of reality is needed now, it's very, very important. You talked something of fear. The word fear has is related to narrowness, and it is others determine about our space, and we should take the courage to take our space back. At the start, you talked about the nations or the roots of people, and the connection to our ancestors is of very high importance now for us. Because the subject, that's a real old subject, knocks on the door and belongs solved, and the ancestors can be really helpful. This happens through that you maybe would get in peace with your father again. And I see that many things in familiar family situations, things boil up, but these are things that you maybe get there from the childhood. Yeah, it comes those things up that belong up, and that belong addressed now. which is in the hidden, and which should be brought out of the cellar now. And in my example, I speak also of the ancestors who are already dead, and they are not annoying you anymore, but they can be regarded, they can be seen, because they are represent a part where you find yourself in your history, in your story. And it's very symbolic. And I'd like to say we have to speak about the underlying energetical forces, and they show themselves in many forms, and some forms seem to fight other forms, but in reality they are just different forms of expression, always nurtured from the same energy. In other words, also those that try to keep us under control, they do this work that's needed, and we get the pressure to free us. And this is what happens. And what you see here as a news, it's only a status report of the underlying energetical forces. You can see where we stand and how much distance has the flannel from you, and how an answer that's needed from you. So the questions that life puts to you, you have to give them. So where are you standing? That's the question. The word responsibility, response. Not that you have a responsibility for you, but it's your response to the life in every minute, every single moment. I brought a news that's very symbolically for the whole situation. You see the chart. We here and now talked about this chart. It's the Baltic Dry Index. It's the chart that that describes the freight costs and movements. So, like raw materials or arches that are needed for the industry. And you can see how the prices develop. You see 622, that's the value. It's a very low value. In this year we had 500 till 1,300, but we've got an enormous minus over the last years, and we now stand at 622. I think, I don't want to be sure, but here it's, I wanted to say in 1985 they introduced the Baltic 3 index, and there it was 1,000. So I have to think 1985, it's 30 years ago. And in this 35 years, the value came from 1,000, about many 5,000, now back to 600. So they explained to us the world gets more dynamic, or in the raw materials it represents itself differently. And actually here the ship producers cannot really bring their cannot really be economic anymore. And before Christmas the business actually should get up, because there's actually more needed. This year it's not the case. The curve that starts here, so at the start of the year, I think, no, last month always. In total, the value is very low, and I bring it because it's an expression of the energetical activities. Here it's about, for us, especially for me, the understanding for certain energetical powers. Make them aware of that you don't orient along the singular thing, but how does the energetical trend look like? And there we see that less raw materials are transported, that the prices go down, and that it's all else but a hint to a recovering economy, or that we live in a booming system actually in the world. But what we see is, it seems here to go back everything strongly. If you look about the news in the moment, it's only one subject at the moment, and that's the big subject, refugees in Germany. And this shows us that it's obviously very good for getting our attention away from the perception of other developments if we focus very strongly on the subject. And here I'd like to point to, it's strangely seen by few people, the subject is consciously brought into the heads. So you really want to plan an invasion from behind, then they would keep the subject down actually. The media can the subject, there is not only, there is no other subject they talk about now. If you walk around the newspaper stands, this is a big subject. If they wanted a silent invasion here, then they could approach the subject more quietly. But for those who think that the media are like saying this, they're not saying everything. They are not addressing every subject they wonderfully want. But here everyone blows into this horn. This is very important, what I want to emphasize. Because we should not only get used to the subject, but it should become an important subject in us, and there is something prepared that they really can, in small steps they want to push the parts of population against each other. It becomes unoverseeable. Here enemies pictures are built up inside of the population, and the right against the left against the right, how they call the dark Germans against the good people, good men. You can find many terms here. And also this binds forces, binds energy. I don't want to say that the subject isn't a very important one, it is it, and it's a very expressive subject, but it's a subject that's used for draw us into binding our powers and to prepare the sin box. They should be blamed afterwards. And there are other subjects like TTIP, negotiations in the background, and look there, and everyone else talks about other things. Or the data saving, this went through, so here went the internet digital data saved, where even the Federal Republic of Germany court said this doesn't work, so that they agreed to that, and even politicians like Gabriel leaned out of the window with me, it won't happen, but that they actually take part in that. And it's nothing else but a Casper theater. And what we can see here is only an expression of what you can have named as a good example. For example, the free trade agreement and other subjects. Many things at the moment can be done pretty unnoticed. Because here's a big subject where friction should be created. And you have to point to this is a high risk also for the system. Because here it's not only to estimate the powers, but also your own capability, to test your own ability to control those powers. And this is done above the honeypots, where you can lure some groups and bring them under control. So there are incredible news about that. But on the other hand, by they really want to proceed quickly in that. We are shortly before the change of the year, so after this would become normality. And we shouldn't forget that this development is no German development, but a development in many parts Europe-wide and other parts worldwide. A big subject, and here they, with high speed, put this into practice, what we can see developing since decades. And we have to be looking that we don't overspan the bow and other things happen than they plan. So they have certain plans. When they do this, then that and that happens. And this has maybe worked before. And when they overspend the bow, and you said these ideologies are basically what should be tried to be kept up with the pincers, then they say, well, you are totally crazy. We will say that to them maybe. My wife is vegetarian since over 30 years, yeah. And I say her father was a butcher. Yeah, and everyone would say, well, I understand that. I could as well tell, well, my wife likes to eat meat. And then everyone else would say, well, I understand it too. And this is the power of the state who knows such laws and creates friction on those parts where otherwise the standing together in community would endanger the system or bring them to fall. So here Schiller I like very much, who says, yeah, we could reach much if we would stand together. And this at the moment is fought very strongly at the moment. So here I have a news, it's the good entry. You want to read that? This is so Dachauer news. Asylum applicants ask when they get their house and their car. And the refugees say, they are challenged, and the requirements that the people have and what they want to have. Well, that they ask, when do they get their house and a car? So this is a woman who works here on a typical working space at the office, and here I'd like to point something. Why does a refugee come with such an imagination? Why do I get a car here? Not they ask. When would they get their car and their house? And they permanently ask it. So the question is, where does this idea come from? And this idea is really, maybe, massively spread in very many parts in the world to motivate people to leave their own home in the hope to have it differently, whereas elsewhere. This is something very basic. It's always conveyed that their future should be better, and somewhere else. And they say it sometimes on Moon and on Mars to us. Yeah, in this way of perception, always does a unrest with the here and now, and this is needed, and this is a means, a trick. And here I want to point to that, especially this question, and this lady from the office is put, and you ask yourself, how does this go? And if she does it so concretely, then she concretely would have been asked exactly that question. And from there you must say, what can be seen as a conspiracy watch in many parts is maybe confirmed here. Yeah, you've seen the videos of the federal government in other language where they show how to get asylum in Germany. So they do publicity for that, but then the information you get a car and a house in Germany. It's not official maybe, but this information is spread. And there are other rumors where the refugees say that the Germans would earn money out of them because the UN gives them the money, but they don't pass it to us. Yeah, and here I want to point that everyone is abused in this. That's the most important thing. So everyone here, the people that come into the country because of such promises, they are in the same way lured here under false prerequisites, but those who are now here confronted from another culture and the strange dealing with legal structures, those living in the border areas realize there are no state borders anymore. If I myself go into foreign countries, I'm controlled at the airport and they see if I have a mouthwater in my bag. And then thousands stream uncontrolled into the country, and this is barely conveyable. And this can only be understood if you deliver a cool explanation, and this happens in many parts, but this also only works with those people who swallow such an explanation, and every less people do that. And here it's really about the system, otherwise they wouldn't go in such a risk in this high speed. So here's the point: the Hessens say the shirt is burning. Here I have an important news that's of importance. It's from the Welt, and it's the headline: Immigrant rights are above right on property. And this is the headline. It's a clear say. Immigration rights is above law rights on property. And Europe has to welcome immigrants and waive rights. And otherwise the EU is not the EU. This is nonsense. But they want to convey this, and what I mean is not that we should be take attention, but a trick is to draw us into absurd structures. If you, for example, are arguing with someone who's totally irrational and sometimes tells them totally different things that are totally beyond the thing, and you can step into the trap, and if you answer to this and give energy to this, and here they permanently do that. It's important for me. It's not about that I interpret, but it's that everyone is able to see the fine things. And here are more fine messages inside. It's very obvious here. Immigration rights above right on property. And here I read Europe has to waive sovereignty to take immigrants, otherwise the EU isn't the EU. And this doesn't mean that the outer border shouldn't be protected. Oh, then we are calmed down again. Yeah. But here you show the article, please show the picture first. What we see here looks like a landing unit from the Navy SEALs, a hose boat with a troop of men, and it has a very martial expression. So look at that, how he stands there. Here is clearly shown what happens in the context of this news. Immigration law on immigration is above law on property, and day by day, boat by boat comes. Refugees land on Lesbos. Alone in October came 200,000 people over the Mediterranean Sea. This picture and this combination is interesting. And there's something nicer. If you look above, you see, our the headline is very small, opinion. Opinion, refugees. And if you look closer, you see this opinion is in a little box. This is not valid. You can say that. But it's a box. It's always a border and stands for itself. Like we experience it in the square brackets. Yeah, the square brackets is inside of the text to bracket something out. Yeah, and is different from the round brackets that add something. And this here is consciously separated. You could say more to that. Yeah, it's in contracts interesting. If there's something inside of four corners or a box, it stands for itself. So this is one part of this news. To bring it with me, it's important. And then here inside there also stands that you here give clear clues in the text how certain laws must be abolished that a new Europe can arise. And this is something that basically is also ideology. They here as ideology is presented with enormous violence, and they show what happens if we don't bow to them. Orban's goodbye of Europe. Europe is a free, liberal continent that treasons itself if they close their porterhouse and hang the sign "We do not enter." This is a stupid gabbling that only intellectual, that only a stupid idiot would would perceive as intellectual. Well, P can present it as champagne, and we are kept in absurdities. And then you have to notice that he has nothing done but certain interests give them a coat that they hang around them, that they're like under a magic hat, and people don't realize what's exactly going on. And what's here going on is meanwhile unoverseeable. Well, I can see a concrete example. You don't people say, well, this doesn't have to do anything with me, but my own sister had to leave their apartment with 3 children because the house had to be abandoned, and she found something new, but the house is not abandoned now, but there come now refugees, and it's from our town, and you could this happens. And I want to point to the term refugee. It's very much over-strapatised. It's a refugee is, according to the here valid laws, has to fulfill certain criteria. And it stands here very clearly that the majority of people don't fulfill those criteria, and that they automatically are named as if this would have been regulated already, because it's a form of manipulation. The terms, the words are used, arise imaginations in us. I remember a time when the guest workers here worked here. And this implies something too. Those are guests. Guests are welcome, but guests go sometime again back. Sometime those guest workers became someone else, and this happens here too. They become migrants, and we have to realize what is, and not in some absurd imaginations that others planted in us. That's the evil thing, and that present us a whole healed children's world, but never in reality. Reality is real. This is real. An escape from another country to Germany would only be if this would be a country bordering to Germany, from which you would have to flee. But neither in Poland, Switzerland, Denmark, someone's so much in danger that he has to flee to Germany. And normally the escape would have ended in other countries like Turkey or wherever. This is an important aspect you name. So I'm escaping from the war and get into a peaceful neighboring country, then my escape is then at the end. But if we leave this out, then the people who beside who deals with the numbers from which regions of the world the people come will quickly realize that it's difficult to find those numbers at all. They speak often of others, and they are in the internet, and they have also, if you see that the people from the whole world go here in streams, like at a starting shot, without that the status in their originating countries would have changed in the last month, where we would say, oh, well, that circumstances changed, and now they're all on the way into the Holy Land. So remember the promise, go there, and you will get this, what you wish. This is an own house, maybe an own job. That had been promised to many people, and that you can find what you cannot find at home in your country. And there, on the one hand, there's the question, who are those who have unleashed those powers? And there are many answers to that. Many things happen above non-government organizations like associations and foundations. But it's no movement that's arised from nothing. And at once there were those refugee streams, like the situation would come would have become so bad, so only few people come from Syria, but those that come from Syria are not easily to recognize because there are so many Syrian passports that are falsified, that are replicas, and look very professional. I'm here in the last days. Some spoke to me when we call those things, they would need a source, and I would say, where have I got those news from? This news that I bring here at the first part, they are news from the mainstream, not because they're very believable, but there is signal. Look here, what is said to you publicly already. If I give hints that I cannot prove in detail, then it's important that I should hint to that no source anymore can be believable today for itself. This is something that becomes enormously important for yourself, that you cannot trust one source by itself now. You can't say that all at Wikipedia is wrong, but you can't say that all is right. And those sources, this information, doesn't make the news more believable, but it's only the entry point for you to your own research. I like to say it because even if the source would come out of a direct experience, maybe of a friend of you who reports to you this word, then it's not a reliable source either, but he just reports what he sees or what he believes he had seen. So I would like to say those are all impulses. Take those impulses on, and if they seem so incredible for you, then it's interesting to follow this, to maybe shake up your fixed world of imagination. No source that I can name here can raise its believability by itself. A nice story as a conclusion. I have some months ago at a meeting with someone I sat at the table, and he was a little bit angry about my way of definition of karma. I said karma knows no morale. Karma is only an expression of the incomplete things. So if you go to a way where the way spreads, you can decide to go to left or right, then you can go to the right. But links could be your karma, and if you go to the left, that would be on the right your karma. It's always what approaches you that is not understood yet, that's not recognized yet. And he said, no, it's not so. He would very intensively deal with Buddhism, and he had asked a high priest, and this one would said that it's like he sees it. And I say, well, if someone confirms me something with a document of the federal government, then it's for me not believable. But if a priest says something to me about Christianity or the Pope himself, then it's for me no believable source, the opposite. The one who is stuck inside of the system will always transport this to the outside, what's needed to support the structures that keep the system in place. So this, it's important to say this, there are no really reliable sources. Yeah, and it fits. We showed pictures that are used for news by the media, but they have been showing things 5 years ago. And here's a picture that after a so-called Russian airstrike on the town Ganat Itza in the north of Syria. But this picture is older, but it's in Heute Journal shown as a picture for this Russian attack on Syrian bases. So this shows again, if the lie press is complaining about something, then it's, yeah, this is a hint here. I don't know if those hints are needed on this part. Remember, those are always people who take care of this imagination, but I'd like to point to a deeper layer in this context, and for many it's an unknown terrain. Pictures are often provided via the agencies in combination with articles. So the redaction, the journalists themselves don't choose often the articles and the pictures, but those news are from the ticker, because before this is offered against the amount the newspaper can then publish a news, and then certain pictures are presented, and these pictures are very, very often not only used to support certain imaginations, but are also signals that we had. So there are 5 agencies or so worldwide, and the opinion worldwide is the news worldwide by some view. And here's a little video where, a video where the same news is in different radio stations exactly the same. You see it word by word, but it's so that people who cannot see it, they cannot see it. They can look at this news 100 times, sees this news 10 times, and gets a confirmation, where he hopes confirmation, and is not used to something else. So here is the clue to look at things that we were convinced before and don't see it as an expression of errors, mistakes in the past, but as an expression of your own development to see things differently now. It's wonderful when I see, well, I believed that those days. I had read a book, and now I read a totally book today, because it's a totally different book, because I understand it in a different way. This news here, I have it here that I have brought. I'd like a little bit to look in which which I should present first. This here, you remember, there had been military people in very obvious in Germany, Dutch military people, and someone, here's a news from the Fulda newspaper, here's about world around military exercise of alien troops. So the district governor says, I don't want people dressed up as Islamic fighters in our forests. Here in Mainz-Kinzig district, there were they didn't cause only frowning at plays, but this is not so correct. So this formulation, frowning, yeah. And you would say, why I prove this? This is because neither the no agency was informed about that. And some days ago, Netherlands soldiers camped in the forest. And he said, this cannot be true. It is an expression that the state, this so-called state waives its so-called sovereignty. So, sovereignty of states is deconstructed partially with violence, and they were not, they have not finished their preparation, so there are resistances still. And these resistances, no matter if they're there or not, there's they give up a structure of the state, and the state solves itself. So soldiers with machine guns of another country can run around our country, and no one has to know anything, can know anything. The state solves it. The borders of the state define what you understand as a state. Not only, this is a very complex subject, but the state gives its borders up. This has an enormous meaning. It's a strong energetical expression, and it affects not only Germany, it affects large parts of Europe. Also, when in those parts are dealt with totally different, but here's something new completed, constructed. This is why how Italy was created. By abolishing the small independent states, Sicilia, for example, Catalonia. This is a pretty young confederation of former free states. Think of Yugoslavia. Think of many other attempts in this direction that we can see. Think of Soviet Union. This is not new. This way is always newly gone, but the way in this it works now is a different one. And it's one that's really, in the truest sense of the word, can be surprising for us with which speed it runs and in which way. And this news here is from the Focus, also mainstream news, as they cannot be more mainstream, from the 10th November, yesterday. I haven't pointed to, we've got the 11th of 11th, hello, but you were not at 11, you were in the traffic jam. So, 11, hello, carnival time. 11 is the number of the chaos, but it's also the number of the healing, and it's the master's number. The 11 is a number with a high meaning, and at the 11th of 11th we can see that the values are turned around in carnival. It had been before so that, especially on this day, the servants had sat at the table, and the lords, the masters, have served them. This expression of a changed quality, and so this they fits enormously for the show, and it's the 81th energies, and this is the number of development. And here it shows what happens. It's the Focus magazine from yesterday. Refugee trains empty themselves on their ride through Germany. They disappear after the first contact. There are thousands in the area without being registered, and it represents a severe problem for authorities. Yeah, that's. I had this news in my podcast, and I want to go again through it because it's important here. For the 1st November, a law is changed. Without bill of your landlord, you cannot move in the future. That's the headline. And this is also from the future. Because they are unregistered, they can be anywhere. That's only a little problem. They don't even make the attempt to register them. It's even better. Yeah. And then look at what at an airport through the controls there. Daily 10,000 are scanned and controlled at an airport. So you cannot say it's not makeable that so many people come. No, that it's not wanted to control them. So if you fly somewhere right now, you maybe should go to the naked scanner, and you are chosen. And on those parts and other parts in the same country, you get there that 10,000 are totally uncontrolled. Can be totally uncontrolled, so you have to consist. This is not because they don't want it, because they don't make it, they don't want it. Yeah. And they speak of that there are now changes are done, and in the practice it they haven't changed procedures. And here, without bill of the landlord, you are not allowed to move anymore. This is the headline. From November 2015, landlords have to write a bill for their renters, and who otherwise they're punished with money. And what has to stand there? And what, after 10 years, the once as bureaucratic dismissed bill comes back. So they have to, in a written or electronic form, within 2 weeks, they have to confirm their change of housing. So, and here for me it's important to hint to the commitment to that you're obliged to the inhabitants office. So inhabitants are citizens with the lowest rights. It's a Hitler relict. So an obligation introduced by Hitler, and it's for some people not valid, and this is what we just heard. So you have to register, and for those people it obviously isn't valid. And this is very, very interesting, because always then when we have two measures for two kinds of people, then this serves a balance of certain powers. So if we look at it as a scale, and I put more into the one bowl, then it serves this side. Then when we see of not equal treatment of people, maybe before court, for example. So this, if this unequal treatment is so obvious, then it is wanted, and it serves for that certain areas get their interested faster and stronger. And it's at the most personal staff identification card in users, they don't have such a free choice and don't have so many rights. So this is the clue. Go there and get proof that you are originally German origin. And this is quickly, for like a stupidity, they say this is right radical if you think about this subject, but we are the natives in this country, the original population, and you have to look around what in Australia and what in USA, what everywhere in the world, in Sicilia. Let's take something European. What happens with the original inhabitants? What happens with the people who, in fact, become uncomfortable for a system that cannot work with free humans? And interestingly, you said it, there are certain rules of play above the visible ones that on some parts are kept for, in some parts are kept and in some parts not. But that make it impossible to deprive you of the right in the same way as they do it with others. But in fact they very, very strongly go against that. We had the subject of national passport, and it's more difficult to get documents that prove that you're a national, that they have tricks, and they retard it and they stigmatize them. So the one who demands its rights is at the same time becomes strange. It's never someone who says, I carry a knife with me, that he is looked at strangely. Yes, why? When he then explains, when I'm working in factory and I have to cut open boxes, they say, oh well, it's fine. And we have some always looking through filters, and it looks wonderful that we are criticized by those who mean to do something good if they strengthen those structures that keep themselves in chains. Yeah, and a furthermore expression is, let's look at the headline. Headline speaks for itself. German politicians demand help via loudspeaker. Dramatic scenes in the border area. Hundreds want to travel to Germany, and a German policeman asked Austrian colleague for help. This sounds dramatic. So the situation around Spielberg can be seen by everyone who deals with this at the border between Germany and Austria. So there are hints from police, military, and people who live there that will be found everywhere. So I brought this news because it's so symbolic. It's so because the headline, so he demands help. We don't get along anymore. And this is the situation. And it's enormously important that it's understood. This is not wanted. That the own people go into a situation where they maybe start thinking about it, where they may be too fast confronted with a situation that's contrary to that they were conveyed up until now. This is a risk. This is like in a submarine that sinks deeper and deeper, and everywhere you see the steel is forming and sounding, and the commander says deeper, deeper, and we say, yeah, we're in the red area, and he says deeper, deeper. It's a dramatical situation, and we see that both sides are served by the press, also important. That what I can have brought here as a selection here can be seen from both sides. On the one hand, not only a kind of calming, but it's a clue. Shut up, he has nothing to say against that. It is so. Europe is so. Otherwise we would have no Europe. Do you want war? Be quiet, shut up. This is one hand, and on the other hand, there is subtle dishonoring of people. And it's prepared to bring this into an explosion. Yeah. I'm neither for them nor against them, but what is done here in the media, for some good quotes on a Pegida demonstration, a man in an interview said he was racist, but he later on they find out he is an undercover journalist. There was a little video that a man from the ZDF TV show in a clown's costume wanted to ridicule the thing, and he says a very creative thought when he reacts in the situation, but this man is quickly seen through. For me it's a wonderful picture for the status of the ZDF television, ridiculous popans that expresses with who we have to deal. It's spiritual, mental dwarfs, I said, that implicate that we would walk around buckled and it doesn't go anymore. Many people haven't. We don't let us spend in front of a cheap train that is not on time anymore. And here you see this big healing potential. What can be seen here is a very old wound, and we can see here at the same time, in the same way, being seen in the 20s, massive fights of political groups, no freedom of opinion anymore. They were violent, and now Pegida people are really attacked with a hammer by Antifa people. And this is the perception is your own perception is needed. You cannot pick someone up if he's totally on the other side of the road. But what we can see, it's a repetition. In the 20s, this has been the situation. You couldn't speak freely up until the 30s. It escalated. But then there were thousands of deaths. And the political parties at those times, and maybe also now, didn't timid to build up fight groups sent out vandalizing people. This fits maybe of the same. Remember the attacks to the lady in Cologne. You have that. Yeah, I have it here, brought with me. Was the murderer who attacked the Cologne, hurt the Cologne mayor who was elected newly, was he a man of the secret agencies? Yeah, we had it often, so we had many attacks be led back to those, or you could look at the Red Army fraction terror organization in the 70s. They are often created by the state itself. Yeah. It's important for someone who the radicality with which the system acts. It's surprising. We enemies present to us, and if he isn't there, we can make him by ourselves. And this happens at many parts, especially old traditions. Founder of the German National Party was an agent of the English, of the MI6. So these things can be clearly and long, it can be seen at Wikipedia, they can be denied, and they don't do it because they declare it as normality. And this is a form of demonstration of power. They said, yeah, you should know that. We can do that. Because, Joe, I'm allowed to, because I'm one of the good ones. And when I torture someone, it's okay. When I hit someone with a hammer, it's okay. When I forbid someone their freedom of opinion, it's okay. And who doesn't get it, that this reality already unoverseeable lives in a children's world, in a status where he really very soon should wake up. Otherwise he would find himself back as a helpless child in a scenario that he can't imagine. The awakening is brutal, and the way out of the children's world is in many cultures connected to pain. So the manliness is on one hand is put a heavy, difficult way before, like that he has to fight a fight or be alone in the night or whatever, just to run through a process where he realizes, I'm not protected. I have to my own rights to take them in my own hands, and this is what the state always again says what shouldn't be. When someone wants to take his rights in their hands, then the state is there at once, because it would make the state obsolete. And on this part we are also already standing. This situation brings already many groups into movements, and these are the first citizens movements that want to take care of security in their own place, and they had been sued by police or groups, whatever. So there are many movements. We are moving in the energetic level and realize that we live in another country than 6 months before. And this news with Mrs. Reka from the Express and NSU victims, NSU terror organization didn't exist even. Yeah, it's just a product from the media. And yeah, and one of the lawyers now said that one of those victims in one of those so-called terrorist attacks had never existed. And there's distraction in the Munich NSU process. So there are many hints to, there are many people involved with secret agencies and or right-wing, so-called right-wing terrorists who are like an artificial product. So we follow here a bigger plan that needs a big organizational planning. So can you, from the view of those who want to create a certain structure and that it's unforeseeable that they want to create it, then they prevent that they take care of that things work in this way and that it works slowly or where resistance is growing, then with radicality it's a little bit more pressed so that the herd of sheep walks further into the gate and not left or right. This happens in many ways, and they don't timid to annihilate singular existences. Well, I think this Bild newspaper is very useful. Think of Raimund Hamsdorf, he who killed himself. So this paper has a bloody past. And here they ridicule someone who, under the headline, "This is Germany's worst real estate agent." So it's an interesting expression, worst real estate agent. We see the 70-year-old man, and he maybe what they accuse him of, I want to say, that made him the meanest estate agent. It's very mean that this real estate agent wants to earn money from the refugees. Yeah, then it's always mean when someone wants to earn money. So you realize it's more probable that a camel comes through the eye of a needle than a rich man to heaven. So this clue, please stay so poor that we can treat you as however you want, because you never get into a status where you can self-responsible become sovereign. And this is what those people, yeah, and this comes always again. Of course, if people make poverty to an important good, he can be kept content in the system, yeah, and this you have to understand. This is not, you can really understand it. 7 days ago in Berlin, a new house for refugees opened. And this brought this real estate agent to throw a letter to 150 households and to write the following: what do you think what your house is still worth now, in a half year, when now the asylum center comes? And he pointed to something where he provokes fear amongst the inhabitants. And this is very, very evil, because even if it's so, and we have the confrontation of reality with the ideologically wanted, even if it's so, it's not allowed to be. Spot. It doesn't matter, even if it's so. And now the shout from the children's world to the same subject. Lawyer demands, give the inhabitants around the asylum homes money. The children's world, let's quit. It doesn't have to be my house. I paid my credit, my mortgages, and now it should be my rent. Yeah, and I thought it's 400,000 euro. Now it's 80,000 worth. It cannot be. Daddy is dead, mommy is bad. Who can I call? Police doesn't come. So the state has to do it. So what we see is this, what derives out of the activities of the state. So if he would really pay people, then it's to the bad of all, to the burden of those who still by their work power seem to let the system to maintain the system. But here it's something that of course is a tendency. I hear, with my being together in Stuttgart in December, I have of course dealt with such subjects, and people ask, what can I do? And a house is immobile, yeah, it stands where it stands, and there are many more mean developments in this context. I don't want to address them because they're not confirmed now, but this could be the smallest problem. Think of the headline in the Welt newspaper. You remember that we heard property right is not the first right, but the right on immigration stands above. And this can all that who seem to have property still terrify them, especially if this property is registered at the state and it stands on the field, unoverseeable. Yeah, and this is why at the census, at the questionnaire where the people were counted, people were asked who own property. Census. Where do you have space? Yeah, an interesting option, space for refugees. They asked 5 years ago, and census is also the name of the American Statistics Agency. You don't, you don't wonder anymore. The sovereignty has not have been given up by the Federal Republic of Germany. This decision came from another part. And here the clue, if the property is in danger, then the subject with the nationality would get to get into another circle of rights. It's something that you could deal with now, not later maybe. So if you point to that, I give another clue in the direction. It's a hint that I normally internally address, but it's also important. Who has property should get a relative proof of property. It's not a proof that protects you like a carte blanche from everything, but you don't need an excerpt from the ground book, but from the Kataster office. And in this Kataster office, you could get in Germany confirmation with a seal and a signature. And this is getting very difficult at the moment. And here we can realize why the structures are being changed. This affects many more. This goes to the birth certificates. This goes to the areas that can be only understood if you understand the bigger picture. And this is to be understood not only cannot be solved in such a show, not in the 2.5 hours, but it needs prerequisites that you get to the subject with a certain understanding to not be overwhelmed and not get into more traps or misunderstandings, and to understand the bigger picture, because only then you can get successful. The yellow bill that proves, so-called proves the Germans of their nationality, it doesn't help you alone. You have to use it. That you know how to deal with it, that you can do the next steps. I think it's wrong to spread such information just into the internet, because then they cannot be understood accordingly. I will so say, when we go walking and I have hidden something important for you, of high meaning for you, maybe an item from your childhood, and you find it yourself, like by accident, because the time is ripe, it has a totally different quality than if I just would give it to you. The searching and finding is in many parts a prerequisite for being able to find more. So it's very important. The protection for certain information is of high meaning and becomes always more important. Yeah, and those informations you find here, the time is really so little, and if you think, well, we can do next year, but it could be that then it doesn't work anymore. Yeah, absolutely. And here's not a singular clue, just do it. So yeah, I have some clues. In some federal countries it's almost not possible anymore, but here, who means should be really glad that they protect those informations, that they protect this information. It's important for those who want to work with them. It's important that there is such a protection. And I did the podcast for members here, and it's a misunderstanding that often arises in the context with my podcasts. It's for members, but still I open things for everyone, because I want to pass on certain informations or give thinking impulses to someone. Say this can be something for you, but others feel excluded and have they have the voracious imagination. It can be available for all. It's never everywhere in the world. You have to pay a price, energy exchange for everything, everywhere. I don't speak of money here, but effort, that proves your seriousness. When I dealt with the subject of nationality, I had at least 1 year, very more, I created more errors in myself, more wrong knowledge, and had the feeling it's a real understanding now, but I couldn't have skipped the way if someone would have presented me the result, the final result. Maybe it would have been the same, but the way there just prepared me really to understand what's behind that. And that's normally very easy, but the way is via the complicated to the easy. And this is, at first, it's the protection and it's the seriousness that is needed. You have to decide, do I want that, do I not want it? It's a big difference. I have an announce from the Institute for Asylum Rights, DE. And here is someone who, Angela Merkel was sued, as well as Sigmar Gabriel and Thomas de Maizière and other politicians, Ursula von der Leyen, because many things that are done wrong with the strange behavior with our borders. And I brought this news because it shows how many people think, how many people believe in the system. And there are more, and it's totally naive, but not unnecessary. It's very important that you say, and it's wonderful that someone says it, but it's an expression of the time. So sometime if you look backwards in 20 years to this time, then you say, there had been many newspapers against the Chancellor. This happened, that happened, and we mean to become to get an energy, an idea out of those newspapers 20 years. But it shows that there are certain corner points that have a strong energetic expression. This is why I brought it. And I totally printed it out. That is the whole this is the ad, an ad for this thematics, or against Merkel, or for, I don't know. And they put links in the original show. That the links are posted a little bit later, but maybe I don't get it with the links in this description. But maybe I can link to those old shows, to those information, but they are all in German. It could be maybe translated by Google. There are things in this time you have to see where you are challenged yourself. Either you search more in the subject or not. And many things, many people go back in their decisions, but now it's often important to proceed. NTV does Schäuble will be interim chancellor. The migration threatens chancellorship of Angela Merkel. There are rumors by the US General Secretary Schäuble could be. This is a wonderful news. That's of course insider, could be an insider news. And you said it rightly. Merkel could then go to the UN as the General Secretary. And here it's important to know that Germany is an enemy state against the UN. Good. Of course, it's explained by they had no time to change this yet, but it's strange. Things can be changed very quickly, within hours if they're important. But that Germany is still an enemy state in the UN Charter. This expresses that if Mrs. Merkel, if she had done her job now, and she had said interesting things, everyone can read them what she said. I consciously don't want to say it because it's so interesting. You have to find yourself that it works well again. That she possibly could be named UN General Secretary. That again, this has this very special meaning. why I have taken it with me too. You could, on many parts now, provoke the impression soon there'll be personal changes after some things are being pushed through that make it impossible to maintain this person in office. So someone will get things done now that damages him so strong that he will be unbearable on this position, because she's carried by a system, not by the people anymore. And it wouldn't be, I wouldn't wonder if Merkel would have already said that she wouldn't be chancellor till the end of a period, and she said it 1.5 years ago. This is very interesting, but people still think if Merkel is away, everything becomes better. That's totally naive. But it's people who think it. But I want to show in a poster from 1981 where Angela Merkel is on, and she already said we will make it. Yeah. From the GDR. In the party, the now chancellor was in the communist in the party in the GDR. So there's an American variety. Yes, we can. So we see it's from the same agency. It's from the same agency. And who can look there? He can see hints that you can vomit. And who looks there, starts looking there, you can see that the power presents itself, especially in that form, and that they leave signs. And those signs are over obvious in context with Miss Merkel, in context with Obama, in context with the structures, in context with Hitler and everything. Just alone the name of Mr. Hitler is programmed. When who a little bit looks and realizes, can see that it's nothing more but a new version, and that we get exactly in the structures that are prepared in the 20th years. Europe-wide. And we have another time quality now with a consciousness change that hadn't been there 90 years ago. If you say it's now there would become a great world war, no, I wouldn't have said it. Good that you address it, yeah. But it's something that concerns the healing of an old wound. I said before, you can say you can easily interpret things this way as the own fears bring it into resonance, but we are especially in a hurry if you see those powers, and not because they just want to go a little bit earlier to the coffee, but it's really burning for them. And so, Mr. Schäuble, I have two news that are very important from my view, and then out of my understanding we will conclude this thematics that basically only has many served many side spaces. So this news here, I've been got attention drawn to this by a mail. Many thanks in this part. How the Spains had freed up their country from the Muslims, and here it's from the Welt. Over 600 years, along 600 years, Muslims controlled Spain. But end of the 15th century, the Arabs didn't only were left in Granada. How did the Catholic kings make this? So here they speak of freeing up of the evening land. This is for me totally an overseas action, but it doesn't say that it doesn't have their dynamics or important justification. This is a clue, but here, once they name such a picture, and it's beautiful to be seen, that they, on the other hand, instigate the other side a little bit and say, well, freeing up from the Muslims through by the church, it is impossible maybe to, yeah. But this, please to see in the context with the next news, and it's important that belongs there, even if you don't see it at once. Read the headline and show us: masked one in Sweden kills teacher and hurts students with a sword. Show the picture and zoom very closely, and now look at the picture. A little bit closer. Now look what's obvious. Isn't that great? they ordered. No, in the midst of the picture. Look in the middle of the picture. What's in the police? IS is standing there. IS. Who was it? These are subversive things. There's no accident. You cannot say it. Isn't it practical? A clue within the middle. Here's the card. This is running so. And again, IS, Islamic State. The thing was named ISIS before. ISIS. That's the discrediting of all Muslims. We get used to Muslims are terrorists. And the Muslims that aren't, they are being by artificial built up terrorist structures discredited, and this is something that's very, very clearly conditioned. Yeah, good that you say it so obviously. You can be the biggest cat lover in the world. If you have 5 cats at home, if you get through a friend 7 cats in addition because she's on holiday, maybe you don't love cats anymore after that. Because too much is too much and has nothing to do with that you're now animal friend in this example. It has our tolerance is always, again, presented as a very important quality. Tolerance is being able to bear. We are so much burdened until we cannot bear it anymore, and then someone is pressed on the button, as they imagine it. So that the preparation doesn't fall asleep. Such things happen very under the headline, or not recognizable under the headline of good men, but still affecting in the background. We experience an incredible form of manipulation. Who can see, can see. It's interesting. I'd love to see how many have seen this IS on the police car. It's obvious, and not even the L. No, it's direct, only IS. And here I've the news consciously added. It's news that I have from a blog, and it's I don't know if it's in the media so big appeared, but under the headline Gesine Schwan's confused Jew comparison. Are Muslims the new Jews? As almost nearby President Gesine Schwan said, Muslims compared the Muslims to the Jews in those days. It's stupid. And Thomas Spahn says on his blog, no, that's forgettingness in history, and victims and attackers are mixed up here. But really, Ms. Schwan points to what's prepared now, and this from her mouth. And here she realizes when something gets understood too obvious, then it should be corrected, and always politically correct, as it wonderfully happens. So here the headline is SPD politician makes her totally unknowingness obvious, and here said clear, so isn't you are not allowed to see it. And every time when you say you in this context, so you are not allowed to see it, or one is not allowed to see it, then they speak of it's more common, and we speak of what in the context we see the parents' ego, like the transaction analyst, and this is always one-sided view. We always have to deal with things that they are from the grown-ups, adult eye. Has he said it? Am I right? Agreeing or not? No matter. But there are no prerequisites how this is to be seen, how Mr. Thomas Spahn wants to sell it to us. This was it to the subject. And I've got, as you want, jump to other subjects that give a clue to the pre-sexualization, because that's also a subject that is proposed also in the moment from a handbook, from teachers, from the framework for the sexual guidelines to sexual education in German Hessen. Professor Gamm says we need sexual stimulation of the students to push through the socialistic structuring of the society, and to put the love of the parents to the children aside. So here the state sets itself clearly between the parents and the children, And in fact, it's, and I've already mentioned that, and we've those clues, so many, the covered backgrounds, and this fits wonderfully here, and you can very well see it in America. There's an every marriage certificate, and it's called marriage license. The product of this marriage belongs to the state. So the state has a claim on the child and claims this claim. And this is an expression of all socialist systems in the past, including those socialistic systems of the Third Reich, of the Nazi system, that had been also a socialist system. Now they want to sell it in another way to us, but the Hitler Youth and the Federation of German Girls, their children were organized the same like in socialist countries. As in the USA today, the children in the morning stand and greet the flag. These structures are clearly recognizable because they want an sovereign citizen, and here it's the professor. He conveys to the readers, I know it better. You are stupid, and if he speaks of new society order, it means they want with the new system even more control. And I think the sentence is so terrifying. We need the sexual stimulation of the kids to push the socialist restructuring of society through. And this is a subject, and I know you can deal with this if you search pre-sexualization in the internet. It's a subject that should restructure society. Let me maybe, as explanation, give the energetical clue to this, and it has something to do with destroying childhood and the childish innocence. And here it's about certain heal structures. Heal, this means holistic, that a child gives automatically as a present into the world to destroy them the earliest possible. And this is done by the first vaccines and via birth, and that the mother does the birth note, and from birth note derives the birth certificate. Here are rights stolen from us in a brutal way. So the kid gets kidnapped in its innocence. And this innocence of the child is dangerous for the system. But you can only understand it if you look at the bigger background. And this happens in many parts. The sexualization starts not then, not now. It had started much earlier before. In many other cultures, it's still applied. In the Vatican, in Vatican laws, maybe there's the marriage from 12 years on. And in other cultures, the girl is with 8 years able to marry, and here it's an old 1,000-year-old structure, but it's now newly used because it has a strong magical ritual quality, and we live in a magical ritual time, and who doesn't get this only sees almost nothing, and they see with much effort they would have left those magic rituals longly behind them. But this is a new news from COP Online. Politologist demands hard procedure against the PAC. The Mainz political scientist Gerd Mielke, that's the name like Mielke, the Stasi GDR secret boss. If the right-affine citizens in Dresden have peed in their trousers while they are from the police, tortured by police, they have enough of demonstrating. That is the understanding of democracy by this politologist. This has everything. If you are from another state of recognition into the world and would not know what happens and would read this, you get an expression that's only he only wants maybe to hide things by many lies. And what the man says here is exactly what a politologist otherwise only says behind closed doors, but we are getting used to it. And Ms. Merkel says years ago that Germans have no permanent claim on democracy and deciding. And this is what says here, and she says it on other parts, especially the same and with other words. And here I plead for a very drastically procedure against the right-wing people, how as then when they did it against the peace movement or the Stuttgart protesters. And the moment where they have in this moment such a no one can claim that it could be better today than in the times that they sold us as a dark times. Who means that in those times, having shown courage, now it's the time to show courage. And Heiko Maas had said similar things, basically that it becomes punishable to say things that are not tolerant. This means the term of tolerance is very much strapatised. Yeah, I have a news from the Focus, and this is so great because it's not only grips on the subject of forbidding cash money. We had it more often for those who newly enter. We had the prohibition of cash money is associated that black money should be impossible, but in the first line you are dependent of the access to your money, and they could deprive you within the push of a button within parts of seconds. It's not only about the money on your account that's maybe blocked because you have not given up everything you've saved up until now. It can over every distance claimed as invalid. It takes you every freedom. And this news I brought with me because it has a special quality inside of itself, and here it is. If you are paying in this country with cash money, the police is interested in you. If you pay with police is interested if you pay cash. Even homeless don't accept coins anymore in Sweden. Yeah, so the Swedish almost only pay with an app or park their cash in the microwave because with cash money the police comes. So owning cash money, we have it in America too. Remember, we already talked about that in America people just can be searched by police, and if they have cash money with them, cash money is claimed, is seized without not by the sheriff, yeah, without a legal procedure. And we said that with migrants, if they have fat money packs with them, the police says, well, yes, ignore that, yeah. But also here is the measure with two measures. And here it's about the energetical supply, and we have had it often that, for example, the animal transportations, money is only earned because it's wanted, and the energetical support is led in the canals where the energy should go, and we know that where the energy should go. That's not all yet. Here it's also about, in these news, with a way that sounds critically at the start, but makes us used to that the final things only are valid if you have to hide something. In many countries, cash money is still an important means of payment, and in Sweden not anymore. And this is a professor who says this. So people who get a renommee like professors or federal chancellor, he has to be a wise person. Yeah, doctor title you could buy. Yeah, and doctor titles are bought in those parts. However, Professor Niklas Arnsson of the Technical University in Stockholm says, our cash money need is low and it goes back. And I have a friend from Sweden who confirmed this. In the airport I couldn't even buy a water because I had cash money plus. And the question to the Swedish on this point, to get a confirmation, he could not use his credit card either. Why not? It was a company's card. And it was also not accepted. And this is a clue, admits a clue that they personally they don't want only want a personal card, and they can make a personal movement profile with a personal profile. So a credit card by itself could be constrained and used by other structures, but it shows how narrow things are already and how much things are burning. If it can be pushed through with us, it's dependent from us, dependent of us. I think here is much more paid with cash anymore, and with us I don't think they will bring it so far. But you know there is not much time. And I have only a few news, but here it's about... then I put this news before, it's a little bit, I addressed this too. With big effort they convey to us we live in the best of all worlds. You can live, say your opinion for free, Joe, you have maybe 3 mobiles, you have a Blu-ray player. What are you complaining? With this last time, when I had the subject. This news fits here, and it's one of the common ones that appear very often. From the Welt in this case. Stitch or die, so brutal was the Middle Ages. The life of the knight in the tournament shows how you lived in the Middle Ages. It was greed and crime. So here they explain us, people are glad that you can live today, and many people don't question that. So they tell us, we had never become so old, we were never doing so well. Who regularly looks at the death notes sees many people with 50 die with 50 or 60 without an accident. There are many things presented to us that's not questioned. If you nowadays would say to say earlier people went better, then you say people are get older now today, but who knows it and from where do you know it? And who deals with things can quickly consist so clear it's not at all. And the history of the Roman who only went 30 years old is one that's like other stories can really be doubted. Surely. Now let's to the Middle Ages. I have here a collection of 1, 2, 3 news that belong together now. You can discuss them, but don't discuss them all, but they show up a trend. Reichs citizens flood the courts. The Malta thing, no, the Malta thing I haven't brought with me. Here, to grip it on, people about concludent contracts, they put workers in offices liable, so in so-called government offices. Yeah, they did little mistakes in their writings. Yeah, so people didn't have claims or liabilities of big money sums. I have not brought this news, but I mentioned it because I want to warn to just do something without knowing it. It's a very complex subject. You have to know what you do here, otherwise the knife in your own hand gets dangerous. And someone who with a nunchaku or a whip hits around themselves without knowing what to do can hurt himself. And on this part, this is the clue. Be really conscious what you do, and then those subjects can be of possibly of meaningful. But here it's about that those cases arise always more from the East Thüringer times, from the Days Mirror Tagesspiegel magazine, or from the Middle German newspaper. So here it's everywhere. Reichs empire citizens try to terrify law employees, legal employees, yeah. But you see that the citizens here want to claim the some rights, and they have get the seal of Reich citizens or empire citizens. It doesn't fit. That serves certain imaginations and solves the brown alarm. So empire is always Reich, always connected to Hitler, and this is done consciously. But people, expressionly, they refer to another legal position, not to Hitler, but before. But for the newspapers, it doesn't play a role. But it's a trend. Years ago, it was a singular case. It's a flood now. And this shows where we stand, that the people start to look, to question the presented structures. And this is great. And this belongs there, and it shows we question things. And this over-postulates those who want to give the same answer over and over again and realize now that their answer had been wrong from the first place. And many people realize how we have been deprived of our rights, and they see how well we can do it backwards. And other people give their money to the bank, and the bank gives it further on, and now we realize how money is created from nothing, and how they create no values but just draw the energy out. And this is, we have now access to the knowledge that we 10 years ago, 5 years ago didn't have, and 1 year ago didn't have, and this is dangerous. And this you have to say, I made a hint on that. Knowledge in the hand of the unknowing is dangerous because it's misunderstood. So the own development process to apply knowledge is very, very important. It needs in this part responsibility in the original sense of the word. What comes on you as challenges with the right answers, to encounter it with the right answers. And this right answer will be another one in 1 year or in 2 years, but always from the it's always the authentic answer that fits at the moment, and then you're not kept in those structures by others. And this is at the moment they fear it, they throw us new rings above our head that we should be confined in some way. I bring some news from Costa Rica. Costa Rica closes public zoos. They go into a new direction to protect the animals. The environment minister says no cages. The profiting zoo owners had resistance. Hunting is forbidden in Costa Rica. It's the first country in Latin America that prohibits the hunting sports. It's interesting that such things can be concluded politically. It's a wonderful country. I've been there in Costa Rica, and Costa Rica is like the Switzerland of Middle America. And Costa Rica is a wonderful country with an incredible diversity. And you see the conscious process in it's some, not only in the economically developed countries. It's obvious, very obvious in other countries. On another, not so important, not so obvious in the outer happenings, but the development in ourselves is very strong, unoverseeable, by to change our attitude to what happens. This is a last news from the Fulda newspaper. Here it's about a climate researcher, Hans-Joachim Schelmhuber. System out of control is the headline. He says the next ice age won't take place, and he warns that we have to look. I don't address this part of the news. So it's a typical news, but it has a wonderful quality, including an insider information for one of my members. But no matter how, even if you don't have it, you can do something with this. So show this news. System out of control. So we see the hand above the globe. This has is like a symbol. Here should be the symbol for the protection is in the description, but it shows very strongly how the world as a artificial system is controlled and brought into certain structures. And if we think from the outside, we can steer the structures, plus some additional hints in this news. So maybe, dear Joe, you have noticed this news from NASA that they now have those wonderful photos of Pluto. Have you realized that? Yeah, it's a little bit, some weeks ago. On the one hand, I'd like to once point to that Pluto is far away, according to what many say to us. Do you have an imagination how far Pluto is? Don't ask me, no. I said I had, I know because I looked it up. And I don't know it, but I say the number that they sell us, and it's not very fixed because it depends on how how the planets are in constellation and in movement. This official distance at the time is between 6 and 7,000 billion kilometers. So 6 and 7 trillion kilometers. It's an enormous effort to steer this satellite from here, from this probe from here, and to get this reliable news. Well, this is a question you can put yourself how this technically works. The second thing is that they sent us a picture in that on the picture of the Pluto is the Walt Disney figure Pluto to be seen. Very small, embedded. I wanted to bring it, but this is a wonderful example where we stand and where we on the one hand get hope and on the one other hand we are ridiculed by others giving you your hope in advance. There it could be better sometime. The Pluto, it's far, but if we destroyed Earth, if we fly there on time, we have the hope. And here is the Disneyland, and this is a good thing, because what else should be the explanation? I experience it because we are very strongly from our middle steered into a fictitious future. This would be mid-transition for that what we have to found ourselves in ourselves. Yeah, and it would be a statement if that would be wanted, that we are drawn out of our middle and we realize how everything it pulls on the outside and we almost sense it physically. And this is a recipe: stay in your middle, stay conscious. Make yourself conscious that you are a canal here, a being that's incarnated here, that wanted to express himself and that partially forgot through thousand manipulations why you got here. And if this serves to perceive you differently, this is the right way. The important thing is that you are as you are in your stable quality. If I look pictures now from my school age, I have now a picture in my head that my father took. I find someone else, and still I know, yes, there I was also once in this state. I perceived myself in this way once. There are also pictures where I don't realize myself anymore. I perceived myself so. I don't mean that I don't recognize myself anymore, this more or less, but it's another Alexander than the one who is sitting right now next to you. And this is what makes the change. And this is one aspect. It's unoverseeable. It's when it's a man. Oh, he had become old. You see, it's a changing process. And this one process, part in you that had always been there, and it is always there. And this part in you that's always has been there as you have been a child, and it's still there, and that will always be there. This is your true quality, in that everything is okay, because there is nothing to change. This changes, they happen on the outside. And this getting to the inside, this you only find on one part. And this is in the here and now. And over this way of knowing that it's here in the here and now, you can, so to say, use it as a trick, because only by moving in the here and now you find to yourself again. Because it seems easier for many people than the way come to you. I'm there. What can I do? And then there come new concepts, fictions for the future, and or being not agreeing with your own past. Yeah, but if I had here, I could. But you are always there in the here and now. And if you do this consciously, then you are especially in that point where you want to be now, should be now, and it brings you into a deep peace. And then you are less to be manipulated with the to and fro of the outer storms. And if those storms get visible to you, then you realize that they are only an expression of a changing, of a permanently changing form of life itself. But you are life in its true quality, and now it comes to a very big changed consciousness, and where you get conscious of that. And when that happens, all manipulation ends. And this can happen from now to now. And this is why the story that's presented to us, we not only can write forth according to the development, then we say this and that will happen, maybe there will a war happen, or arguments, or civil war. In that moment, when the consciousness process is above a critical march, and what I say isn't true either, but it's an approaching to things that would be ununderstandable elsewise. In the moment where that happens, all simultaneously changes, because what emerges out of the sources. This means if the source gets conscious to her own quality, then nothing else would happen. This is not according to the source. And this we have to accept, because then we sense that I cannot function anymore. And I read an interesting reader's letter of a man whose son is policeman, and who really is standing at a decision, what do I do? That what I do, I cannot really do with good conscience anymore. And I'm treated bad in my work, partially that I that I have to do and have to meet a decision. Yes, but this decision can only be met when understanding is there, when real consciousness is there. And you know what? Then no decision should be made anymore. Then it decides by itself. And this is the point where you can see someone once, simple example, over years stopped smoking, has let himself being hypnotized, was at a course, has read books, it didn't go. And at some point from now till now he stops smoking. When he searches, he will of course find an event. Yeah, his brother died of lung cancer. But in reality, this is only an event as the others. But he was riper. It's the moment where another attitude, and attitude is adjustion is the good word. He was adjusted differently. He was in another resonance. This is my concern, what I want to speak about. And we call it the shift of frequency, and this happens. It's a shock to many, and it's this physical effects, and in their own understanding, and different moods than before. Maybe we should, in old tradition, grip that up. Yeah, but how do you deal with that? You said many things that you could almost let stand as a conclusion of word, because it's so elementary. People ask again and again. I address that. One says, yeah, you have given health tips sometime, maybe we should start then and talk about that level above. Where we have not much light at the moment, where the vitamin D3 doesn't create so much. So I don't know if there are highly dosed vitamin D3 with us, one of many things, but I wouldn't so much say that we take so many supplements, but there is something missing now. So what can we do too? Yeah, basically what you just say shows when you enter these thematics, then you get into an enormous depth where you can deal with the subject healthy water so much that it goes through your whole life, and it's not possible that you say it's not impossible that you say at the end, oh, I know less than before. Maybe you've got phases where you are very sure, and then new recognitions come. Here is no absolute truth, but there are basic hints, and these basic hints, they lead with a singular person there to that he gets from this basic hint to the general issue, and there are basic hints to the subject of health. Yeah, one hint is that today there's many artificial things in the world that's actually of less value, and we note in nutrition many substances that actually are unhealthy from whatever reason. Sometimes you think they want to poison us. Those substances are in the air, in the water, in the nutrition, but I wouldn't cause panic now, because it's about getting conscious to look what's natural. What's natural in the things we could eat. Nature offers many old things that are healthy, but they don't say to us anymore. 20 years ago, the doctor would have said maybe take natron or whatever, and today there are some great pharma products. So just making yourself conscious that what today is sold to us as healthy by the health system doesn't have to be what's the best for us. Yeah, and that's the basic information about which everyone almost stumbles. And I'd like, if you like, to recommend something directly, concretely. What I recommend within my personal context for me is what you just said. If we look spiritually, what you dissolve and digest becomes a part of you. What you give in it is partially consciously burdened with harmful chemistries. Maybe for example, in the meat production, there are cruel things, arises many fears, and you can now, from the scientific view, consist that such informations are passed on. To have efforts to have natural nutrition is enormously important, to become conscious that you yourself consist only of pieces you eat. In my entry, maybe the best and first entry is we carry all things around with us, and letting go of all things. It's enormously important, and on the material level we carry many things in our colon. So it's, if you like, the colon is a dark place, so nutritions are solved out, and at the same time the water is solved out, and it's about basically to take care of old stuff transported out that you could leave behind. And this leaving behind happens in many parts not. Also in our daily life not. And here I recommend Flohsamenschalen, an old Indian means Flohsamenschalen. What is the English translation? It's like a fiber that is of good importance, and it's fiber in the colon. We need patience that things get into movement in the physical, and it's about colon cleansing, and it's a wide field, and what's stuck in the colon, what doesn't work anymore, that we don't work anymore as we should work. There are good methods. You can inform yourself about it. Don't exaggerate. Start slowly, maybe with a teaspoon of Flohsamenschalen, of shells of this plant. Drink enough, and we have the second thing. is we have a lack of bitters. Psyllium is the Flohsamenschalen. And the second thing, the bitters, we have many layers on the physical level, on the chemical level, and on the biological, and on the other hand, the symbolic level. Bitters, we actually don't want to have them in the world. We have an enormous high consumption of sugar, and also that is a strong expression of our time. We are very much steered by the head. It's the nutrition of the head. Slavery is without sugar not thinkable. So a very interesting subject. And bitters, we have a lack of them. And to add bitters is a good idea, because they carry a symbolism inside of them that's needed now. From the children's world, where I actually wouldn't love anything bitter, fui, to the educated grown-up with a higher developed sense of taste that could appreciate bitter in certain parts also in their nutrition, in their diet. So certain foods you would have to build up a certain resonance to be able to appreciate them anyhow. And this is what most people don't go through. They just pendle swing between schnitzel and noodles, and it's expression of complexity. Also by tasting different things can be enlarging your perception. And it's about acids and bases, and the change, when the body is sour, parasites can come that we don't want to have. Where on the other side we have more better, the body has better defense qualities when it's in the basic area. So we had interesting shows with certain vegetables and sodium, to become conscious that we are sour, that many things are missing, but many things we could and should let go of, get rid of in our body. So toxins, whatever. And I want to point to that it's interesting if you start to open up to a subject and to feel into yourself and don't try to do everything perfect. This could keep you from that. Yet stress again. Yeah, exactly. And if you think of this, it's a very symbolic means that I want to name. Finally, we can see these are the effective microorganisms. Effective microorganisms based on the discovery of a Japanese researcher who said everywhere in the world, when water is alright in a natural balance, then certain bacteria are found. And he found to make those bacteria available in a nutrition fluid, and this is nutritional fluid, and this is effective microorganisms. And it's good on many parts to have an energetical equalization without chemistry. My wife cleans the windows with that, and she does it in the normal way 2-3 times a year, and it just had been, and she says it's amazing how clean the windows stay when I do it with EM. It's just an equalization, and you can try this out well, and I recommend a website here, because it's a point where you can buy very cheaply a good quality. It's triaterra.de, and Marco Heckel, and he has cheap, good quality. You get something that says in the symbolic level, don't try to fight the bad bacteria, but do an equalization by attracting what's in harmony. create a milieu, and if the milieu is healthy, then you are healthy, and only things that are harmful don't feel well in that. And that's what symbolically stands for where we are in now. Create a milieu, a surroundings, but without prostituting yourself. And this prostituting is demanded of us permanently now. When you are in a society where everyone prostitutes itself to not lose their place at the feeding place, yeah. So become conscious, become aware of the space you want to take. And another aspect is what it belongs at the end, that we say, how do I sense those energetical streams in myself that partially go to a big tearing apart on the emotional level. Many people are challenged, can sleep bad, sense an enormous energy partially or partially a lack of energy. This is in our times also due to what they do manipulatively behind the scenes, but also because it's an expression of the changing consciousness impulses that become much stronger. And it leads to that my system of singing together Shakti, and it has totally different energies before, and I can those techniques are much better working now because of the different energies. Yeah, it's for a hint for somebody who wants to do things as always, that doesn't get the times. So it's important you can sense in yourself, how do I feel, and if I'm in unpeace, unrest in myself, then it expresses itself on the outer world, and I can say, yeah, I'm in the unrest because everything around me is in unrest, but we can say it also the different way, that what I send out comes back to me. This means I could set the course in myself, what I want to have in my surroundings. This would then come when I have it in myself, realized in myself. It's not always easy, but it's a hint to sense into yourself and to try this harmony, this surroundings of harmony, to create it inside yourself. You know, inside in me there's a part that's always in peace and where I feel well, and I can cuddle into sleep and think, well, I'm actually alright. And this sensing this feeling and to try to extend it if it feels well. The danger that I see in that is that the imagination of guilt arises then maybe quickly. I just want to show up the structure that is also abused, where you can say, well, you are guilty yourself when you caused bad things, but look there, and this clue, look there, is important, but not from morality. And it's important to not become unhappy again when I say I'm so incapable, or I sense I would have been so far. Now this is coming up again. What you sense here is an expression of energetical movement. You are the one who takes these things on, but you are not what's presented here. But that's a complex playing together of the whole forces. And with that you can get into peace and say, aha, you know, I'm really getting to unrest and in resonance here. You know, here I'm strongly getting to a point where I feel challenged. To watch this is enormously precious, and it doesn't mean that we are not allowed to have those developments. Just see them as a temporary expression. Your true quality lies in yourself, in your being complete, in your completeness as a person, as your being, in your being without start, without ending, and without that you would only have the chance to influence what presents you on the outside in this history, in the story where we mean that we have such a big influence. This is energetically only supplied by what should happen. And if you get that, you can be in peace with that all, and peace arises then in yourself, although it had always there been and should have never have to arise. Conclusion of word. Thanks, Alexander.